Hi, and welcome to Sustainability Sisters. And today we have a very special guest with us, and she is a colleague for me, and she's worked with me for close to one and a half years. It's my pleasure to welcome you, Yumzhana. And should I say Dr. Yumzhana, because she's also done her PhD and she has a lot of experience in climate change, and she's worked with ESG. And so, Yumzhana, since you are like very far from us, she's in Amsterdam. Please let us know like your journey towards sustainability, and how did you even learn about sustainability? Like the first time you got introduced to this world, and how did you maneuver to this position?
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here, Smarika. Thank you. Let me just start actually there that because it was a newly created role for climate content specialist in Sustainalytics, where we work together. And my former boss, Frederick Fogzer, has established it right after he joined Sustainalytics himself. And I assumed that he wanted someone with a deep research background. And I had it, as you mentioned, during my PhD program. And also, he wanted someone who worked across industries in sustainability. And basically, there I was. But at the time, I was an effective head of ESG at a gold mining company called Adios. It is the first largest company by the reserves in the world. And I worked there in investor relations department. I communicated with our investors globally about our sustainability performance. I worked with different ESG rating companies, including Sustainalytics. So basically, I was a client. And but actually, originally, I'm an economist. And I started off actually studying finance and economics. And during my master's degree, I learned about sustainability and Paris Agreement, which was about to be signed at the moment. And then my econometrics professor had talked to me about this rapidly evolving carbon markets, and he suggested to go to China, where they were launching the first national pilot ETS projects. So I thought that if I'm going to make some impact through my career, I have to study that part of the finance that potentially can break the cycle of living off of the planet's resources and help respond to climate change. So I applied and I won Chinese government scholarship, and I went to study to Fudan University in Shanghai for 1 year. And I think there I realized the scale of the economy and the speed of changes which happen around you, because in China, the scale was completely different compared to Russia, where I lived. And so I thought that I have to find a job which would help business and finance change like in the green direction. And here I am, I think.
Awesome. So you are sort of driving the green transition. You're among those pioneers. So how does it look like for you? Is it overwhelming to be here and educating everyone about what carbon markets are and how to, do their carbon emissions assessment and be on the, market? Is it too early for everyone, the investors also to understand all of this?
I don't think it's too early now. I think that investors all over the world have already heard at least about green transition. And but before answering on if I'm able to educate and how I feel about educating, I probably have to start with how I even started my work career. And basically, I started at PwC, actually in the public sector consulting, because I studied public finance. But I think it was only because I tried to look for the roles in sustainability, but there were no roles basically in sustainability on the Russian market. Okay. And while I worked there in PwC in public sector, I learned about sustainability department within the company, and I just asked the director for a meeting, and I explained to her that I want to start career in sustainability, and that I already studied it during my master's, and that my thesis was dedicated to international carbon markets with focus in China. So PwC had a very small team of only 4 people, And I basically just asked to join them. There was no position. And while I was working there, sorry?
This is what year?
No, it was in Moscow. It was in Moscow.
And like time? 20?
6 years ago, I think. 6, 7 years ago.
So 2018.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But then, like while I was working in this department, it actually grew to 8 people. And we were doing sustainability audits and obviously consulting, because many companies, they were just taking baby steps in this field. And we had to do a lot of educational work, as you said, and also build systems and different frameworks like from scratch. Like the companies didn't have anything. They didn't have any data systems where they would store non-financial information. Like there was a lot of consulting, but of course it was mainly big Russian real sector companies. And later I joined a private investor relations and ESG consulting firm. And it also mainly worked with oil and gas, mining and utilities companies. And I felt like we were much closer to the client. And I think it allowed us to promote sustainability initiatives better to those companies. Generally speaking, social initiatives, I think, were perceived a bit better than environmental ones. And I see 2 reasons why. So, yeah, I think basically social responsibility is something that existed in those companies for decades due to Soviet influence. And we were just helping to formalize it and enhance it and update it to like the international level. And we were creating many different documents and many different policies for them, like anti-slavery statement, update human rights policy or code of ethics. And it was more difficult to improve transparency actually of the workforce breakdown. But I think only because of technical capabilities of those HR departments, because the companies are quite traditional and people who are working there are also quite traditional. But on the other hand, environmental initiatives were often met with resistance because there was just lack of enthusiasm, because everyone understands how costly it is to make even like a slight change in such conservative industries. And this includes not only financial costs, but also time and people. And basically we are speaking about years of implementation and a problem with the lack of specialists. And also the budgets of those companies in real sector, they are locked in for many, many years. And people who are managing those budgets might have completely different view on sustainability in general. So in our company, in our consulting company, we talked a lot about the mind shift, which should happen in management and how we can aid that, basically.
Yeah. It's a cost center for the company as of now. But in your experience, is that mindset now shifting that no, it's not a cost center, actually it's a value center and we are creating positive value for society and environment? Is it?
Especially after COVID, would you say environmental assessments have gotten a boost since then?
I think all of the crises like COVID and financial crisis have shown that financial system is not as stable as we thought, and that embedding sustainability is a system-wide issue. And I think that it can be facilitated through finance. So sustainable finance field was created where we all work in right now. And it includes carbon markets that we spoke about, sustainability linked loans and other various instruments. But it takes time to mobilize finance for sustainability. And I think that one of the main reasons is people. And if we are going to move to the net zero economy, which is one of the sustainability goals, obviously, we should put people at the heart of it, because we need to create a new net zero workforce, basically, for such economies. And real economy sectors, energy, transport, are already hiring and training new generation of professionals who work purely with net zero technology. But net zero education in finance and economics, law, business in general is not mainstream yet. And it is absolutely crucial for facilitating the transition to a net zero economy, because I think that transition can only happen in the right policy and in the right business environment. So I think the emphasis should be put on actually states, which creates national transition plans, and that then it cascades down on people in all different spheres of economy. And if you have a broad climate policy, it can allow investors, enterprises to develop skills and train new kinds of the workforce. So a policy signal is needed, and it should be an integrated approach. And then the corporate ambition, I think it will come into force naturally, and it like with appropriate engagement policy from the state, of course, like corporates will hire and train new net zero workforce.
Yeah, I think that is a great insight. Here in India as well, their net zero ambition is till 2070. And so there are baby steps. I won't say there are great steps that have been taken, but India is also on the vulnerable end of climate change. Like in Mumbai, in Rajasthan, there have been deaths of like because of heat stroke, and because of that I think we need to act sooner rather than later. And then again, yes, there is policy, then there is international policies and international events that are going on that are also accelerating climate change. So yeah, it's a lot of things, it's a complicated subject, yes, of course. So do you also get, yeah, Sajai, do you want to add?
Yeah, I had a question. So most of these days, investors are looking into ESG ratings, like the ones we've worked at Sustainalytics on, low carbon transition rating or ESG transition rating or climate risk. But ratings across firms who do rate ESG ratings or similar ratings are not consistent. In that case, from the investor's perspective, what would be, and as per you, a better way of looking at different ratings? And whether congruence in ratings is supposed to be a factor that is going to push investors?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Like, should investors basically trust our ESG ratings, and how they should use it if they do trust? Well, from my experience right now, I see that mature investors, they actually have their own like internal ratings, which can be based either on the data that data providers like us sell to them, or they would just use the scores of all the ratings that they are buying and create something on top of that score. So basically, you are either using the raw data and you create something by yourself, or you're using already made assessment, but then you assess this assessment. And I think investors are using different approaches. In my opinion, most of them, they narrow it down to carbon metrics, because how can you measure that the company is actually doing some progress in terms of net zero transition? Only if they're reducing their emissions. So carbon metrics, which includes basically carbon intensity or carbon intensity trend, it is something what most of the investors are looking at, and their portfolios, they actually have like some stop signals. If the carbon intensity of a company is exceeding a certain value, then it signals to them that they have to like delete the company from the portfolio, or they have to check this information. And then that's where they're working with us to try to understand what happened to the company, like especially if everything was well before and the company was stable or reducing its emissions, and then suddenly there is a shift. And then for us, as I said, like this new workforce, it takes a lot of effort to not only try to understand the environmental reasons of this shift, but also business reasons. So like if we return to speaking, how can we train the new workforce, and like what do we need from the new workforce? I think that it can be people from different backgrounds, but what's important is that they have to have this will to learn about different aspects, and understand not only environmental part, but also the social part, and also the economy part, of course.
For me, I think carbon is very tricky. What do you think, Yumzhana? Because I have seen reports where suppose there is a chemical manufacturer, and for some operations from there, they made it like it was their upstream, but it was the chemical manufacturing process itself. And when it's upstream, it gets shifted to scope 3. So are companies using these kind of cheap tricks to reduce their scope 1 plus 2 intensity? Or are we like, is investor smart enough? They're looking at 1, 2, 3, but then the data becomes an issue, right?
Well, again, depends on the investor. From what I saw in the reporting and also in investor inquiries to us, is that they actually looking at total. So it does include 1, 2, 3. And we suggest to them to not look at only totals, but also look at 1 and 2, because scope 3, as we all know, is still in development for in terms of disclosure. And you can not entirely trust when the company is even reporting like a full scope 3, because if they're doing it for the first time, they might not do tricks. I would not call it tricks. I would still believe in good faith of their disclosure. But I think it just really, again, depends on the training of the people who are doing this disclosure. And of course, if you're doing something for the first time, especially by a new regulation, you will inevitably have some mistakes. So I think what investors, like one of the tools that investors can use is actually having estimation models, and they do have it, or they are using, again, our estimation models. And I think estimation, which is in our company at least, is based on the reported data. So there are different factors that are included in the model, but basically it's based on the reported data and it's trained on the reported data, our algorithm. So investors can trust more to the reported data because we understand what is the industry, like how does it look like, what are the minimum maximums, what is the median, and if the company is reporting something which we would suspect is not aligned to the industry, yes, then we can offer an estimated value.
Yeah, I think that is what is required, because the boundaries, they vary so much company to company, and so it becomes very difficult comparing within the same industry. So I think with the new upcoming regulation, which is Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, when the auditor also gets involved and everyone's required to undergo that. So hopefully now we will have, I think now the disclosures have already been improving for the last couple of years since we had SFDR in place. So I think for you, it's a very good position. What I have seen is the multinationals, they have because EU, it is compulsory to have your net zero targets by 2030. So what I've seen is the multinationals who are operating in different parts of the world, they are just setting targets for Europe, and they are not setting the targets for Indian operations. So it's going to reduce for Europe operations specifically. So which means that all the dirty work is going to happen here. But then EU again came up with CBAM. So we are hoping to see more on. Yeah, it's again a very complicated.
Yes, that's very true. I actually wrote a research paper on CBAM because I worked briefly in the Energy Institute. And in Moscow, it's like an institute, an institute under the MBA school, and I was working there on CBAM because at that time there was no university or no other research institute which would dive into this climate policy, because we didn't have it before, and I was helping different ministries to understand what is even a climate policy. And when I was participating in those meetings with all of the public servants, are they called? Yes. I had to explain things from scratch. I had to go to IPCC reports, and I had to talk about why. Basically, the main question was why Europe is doing it. Like, why do they need it, except for the money incentive? Because it was purely seen as, okay, Europe just wants to get more money from importance, and there is no other incentive. It's another trick. And I had to explain to them that you can see it as a trick, but it actually has another dimension, and I will try to explain it to you. So we wrote this CBAM paper, and there we I believe that CBAM in general was created with, again, a good faith, that it would really incentivize other companies, and as you said, multinational companies, for example, that want to import here, then they would have to do something in terms of sustainability and their carbon intensity, which is the main metric for CBAM. If you're above this carbon intensity value, then you have to pay. So it will make them to do the progress if they want to work with Europe, basically.
Yeah.
And that's how some companies started doing this greenwashing things when they create a new subsidiary or sort of subsidiary. Like they say that it's not our company, basically.
Yeah.
There are some schemes, but I will not dive into that. I don't know about it. I just know about the yeah, I just know about it because it's a part of it's an example of greenwashing. So basically they create another company and they put all the dirty assets on that company, but the main company, which is a listed company, it stays clean, it like gets cleaner because it loses all of those toxic assets. And that's how they were improving. Some of them were improving their ESG ratings. And not only it happened not only with CBAM affected companies. It actually happened because it's such an easy scheme. Like you just create another company and you put all the dirt on. It happened with other companies as well who decided that they want to join an ESG rating because basically it improves your visibility for the investors who are interested in green investing. And then they would prepare for joining by doing this thing, by doing this greenwashing. And I mean, it's I think that there is one positive thing about it, only one probably, is that at least they understand the importance. At least they understand that it's urgent and that they have to do something. Even if it's bad and wrong, they understand that it's something that would come to them at some point, again, on a state level. And they are already interested in it. They're already interested in solving this problem.
Very interesting.
I think in India, the BRSR regulations, the Business Responsibility and Social Reporting guidelines, they bring out the related party transactions of any given entity. And you also need to list down your subsidiaries within the same report. So once you see that most of the related party transactions or the goods taken from are from the entity's own subsidiaries, which are probably not as green, it's easy to recognize who are the players in the dirty businesses together. So that is one part I think that's happening in India, and I think it's an easily implementable guideline as well for companies across all sectors. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, now that you both have mentioned it, I think analysts also know this, and probably it will be reflected in your rating in future going forward, because rated is not so dumb because they also know, they have seen so much reports.
No, the methodology is continuously evolving. We are continuously updating it and refining it. And I think that's why ESG rating companies that will stay relevant for a long time, even though there is CSRD coming, and even though that there will be XBRL and it would be easier to find and store and report information. We wouldn't need so many people to train to interpret this information because it will be all in one format. Still, this is ESG rating companies who actually, again, as I said, they assess the company from all different angles, and they have all kind of specialists hired who can understand the business side of it, the scientific part of it. So I think it's important for the investor to know that the assessment has been done 360, and it's been done by people, and it's been done by it's been done using different checks and filters. Like before we publish any data, it goes through so many rigorous procedures before it gets published. Even again, because we know that even if the company reports well, and we notice some slight change, or we know that there's been some business move done throughout this year, then we know that something should change in the reporting. And if it stays the same, I mean, machine learning is there. Like, we are doing a lot of data mining, and we are developing tools to optimize this whole process of collecting data and of assessing data. But again, we still need people who know how to manage all that, and who know how to interpret that, and who know how to answer the investor about it. And I think it's something that that AI cannot do yet. Maybe cannot won't be able to do it all, because again, I think that ESG rating, it shows like non-financial health of the company. Like, it's easy to understand financial health when you're looking at the report, but when you're reading sustainability report, in many cases, the companies are trying to present their best picture, and I think only can read the text, yes, and understand the double meaning and understand what the company is actually doing. And it really applies to sector specialists, because if you're trained on a certain sector and you know all the players, you understand the history of those players, and you understand what they are talking about in their report, what they're trying to say, or what they actually mean. And I think that only using AI, it's not possible to train. It's not possible to receive the same assessment from AI and from a person.
Yeah, maybe it's a future direction, but that would also need a lot of data for AI to train on. The kind of data Sustainalytics, for instance, collects is so deep that it will be tough for like it to be fed to AI first of all, then AI becoming smart enough to read that data within the sustainability report. But very interesting that there is a lot of space. I like that story very much, where you went to PwC and you said, this, I am in sustainability and I would like to work over there. And that is so inspiring, because that kind of spaces exist everywhere. And it's just for the workforce to understand that a company is also looking for improving their own ratings and, like moving towards sustainability now, even though it's because of regulatory pressure. Maybe they are still feeling that it's a cost for them. But with a good, a good CV like yours, a good work experience, and I think they can create that kind of position. They can demand the industry to give them that job, because like you mentioned so many papers that you have written with energy agency, and then you worked with the mining agency. It's tough. I can understand it's tough. And you've worked with all of those conservative environments. It's same in India as well. So there will be people always pushing you, and you'll be pushing sustainability. And so how do you manage that? Like, you face so much resistance around you, and do you also get that climate anxiety? See, these people are not doing anything, and the world is gonna warm. And so how do you handle all of that?
So I met a lot of resistance during my academic career. When I was writing my PhD, I had to explain and talk a lot about how sustainability is connected to finance and economics, because I was studying on a finance department, and I think there were a lot of debates with my professors during our department meetings, where they would explain how it is important, but it should not be like the priority, or it should not be the main thing that can drive business. They would say that monetary policy, for example, is more important. And it was difficult to argue with them, again, because I was a student, and I had to look up to them, and they have decades of their career built, and they are working in prestigious companies or in the state. And for me as a student, I had to prepare a lot. I had to study a lot of international experience, and I had to really build my own explanation strategy and in order to just prove that my topic is relevant and that my topic is like scientific enough, that it's research worthy. And for them to actually acknowledge it by the end of my studies, when I was in the 4th year, I think half of the professors have published some works and articles on sustainability. Again, I think I was lucky at the time, but like because the state started working a lot and started creating climate regulation, started working a lot on sustainability. Like, I think it was triggered by G20, where China said that they would take sustainable finance and like as their priority, and of course Russia had to respond to that basically. And I didn't expect to get like such support from like, it was an externality for me. For 3 years, I was basically like inside my own studies, trying to find logical arguments, trying to find better research and better ideas and hypotheses. And then there is this just some, let's call them officials, performing and saying that, look, sustainability is very important, we gotta do this. And after that, professors, I see their genuine interests. Now they are not, they are still arguing with me kind of about like the necessity of studying only sustainability, but I can see that now they know that I studied a lot of international experience, and they just simply maybe didn't have time for that, or like they then, like maybe their English language not on that level, but they don't have to. So basically they were just looking at me as some source that could bring some insight from outside, so from Europe, from the US, how does it happen in other countries. And as I already wrote so much material, I actually wrote a huge thesis, which then I had to cut like maybe a half of it, only because now they were so interested. They wanted me to research this and that and that and that. They even wanted me to research the technological part of energy transition, which I am not a specialist in it. I'm not an engineer, but I had to dive into that to understand if it's feasible. So that was one of the main questions. Like, okay, we will divert the money there, we will train people, but is it even feasible to like move an oil-based economy onto some greener energy? Like, if it's feasible. We have such vast territories and stuff like this as India as well. Like, is it even possible to do? So I had to do this assessment, and again I had to look at other countries if they did this assessment, and of course no one did, or it was all in the pilot stage. So for me it was such a huge challenge to not only research that as a topic, but also kind of make this mind shift inside my department. And I think at least that's what they told me at my defense, that I managed to do it. On part of the people there, I managed to do it, and some of them, they became like really enthusiastic about it. They really believe and they really understand that this is where the future is going. So for them, like they themselves became advocates among their colleagues.
That's so great. Congratulations, Yumzhana. I think that was a great journey. In India also, this kind, now they know, because they are facing the global warming, and because we are near to equator and it's a hotter country. So there is a lot of interest, but then India is also a largely coal dependent economy, and our main energy source is coal. So
Yeah.
but there is a lot of sunshine, so there have been like large solar farms, but then again for them there are some arguments like you are clearing land, and we are losing biodiversity. So those kind of articles also I see. So everything has its pros and cons, and so the economics becomes really difficult, and so yeah, it becomes very subjective for that particular situation. So I think that's where sustainable finance and analysts and all of them come into picture. So it's a great like opportunity for the transitional workforce in India So that's why also this channel, so that people understand how, you know, people can from scratch transition to building those skills, and what kind of areas are there where they can contribute. So very interesting. Yes. And my last question, which the climate anxiety. So like I also did a climate impact research, and so it was about Himalayan glaciers, and basically it's like six out of 8 boundary layers have already been crossed for Earth. And so I often feel that kind of anxiety. Do you also feel this? And then do you feel angry on people? Why you still consuming so much and still polluting the environment? And how do you deal with that if you feel?
It's a very personal question. Thank you for that. I think that I had so much anxiety again during my academic career. I had so much anxiety that people they told me, like, do you believe in climate change? And it felt like it's some kind of religion. And I said, yes, I believe. Like, it's because when I was talking about it logically, when I was talking about the research, when I was showing again like IPCC reports and many different things and the statistics, like that money are going there, actually, like you have to see this. They would be like, yes, we understand, but do you really believe in it? Like, do you believe it's a real thing? And so already, like, around like 10 years ago, I decided for myself, like, okay, let's take it as a religion I believe in. Because there is no other way to explain to some people that let's just all believe in it. And then there is like, it's a closed question. Like, we believe in it, that's all. And this is happening. And now we just have to work. Like, we have to work in all different directions. So I think I still have this anxiety somewhere at the back of my heart, that every time I read the news and there are some fires, especially in Siberia, where I'm from, my heart really breaks because I like, fire is something that everyone would perceive as a destructive thing. Like, of course, floods and hurricanes, you can see they're also destructive, but fire, it has some like sort of literature meaning, like, you know, like burn everything, you know, like it means that, like, if an enemy is coming to your territory, they are burning everything. It means that they will destroy everything forever and nothing will ever grow there for many, many years, right? And you cannot live there. So, and when I see that there are so many hectares of Siberian territory which has amazing forests which grow for like decades and it all burns every summer, and the territory is like the size of some European country.
Yeah,
I not only have anxiety, I feel like even like I'm not doing enough. I feel like I'm not doing enough. And I think like I'm working in this amazing company and we are so important, and we are so central for the financial system in general, but we have such indirect effects on those fires, and like I want to have a very direct effect on it. And I think again it all goes up to the policy, right? It all goes up to the state. If they make it priority, then it's done. If they don't make it a priority, and it is regardless of the regime, basically, of the political forces. It's just if the high ups have this mind shift, if the high ups have the understanding what is important for most of the people, then they would have to respond to it. And if people are not reacting to this, so basically everyone is like, yeah, there are fires every year, like in Australia, in Siberia, yeah, that's normal, there are fires. It is not normal. I still don't think that this is normal. I think there should be more forces that would aid that. And this climate anxiety, it's something very personal, and that's something that sits with you always. But I think the problem is, how do you respond to that? And that's why I want to continue working in sustainability. And I think that more people should work and more people should connect their current work. If they don't want to change their career, they should connect their current work to sustainability and think how can they contribute to that. And again, building this new net zero workforce, I think it should be one of the priorities for the state and for the companies and for the universities on a broad scale. It should not only be that we are creating new types of engines, or we are it's not only should go in STEM and biology and everything like that, but again, it should go to the decision makers, who are usually people in law and people in business, and who should see behind the dollar, basically. And it should be just mainstream for them, I think.
Yeah, very beautifully put. I think the anxiety which lingers is what can we do more? Because now I also read that Brazil lost the Amazon forest, which is a size of France and
yes
mix, and those are called the lungs of our planet. And so yeah, I think I also stopped reading news at some point, so I am not reading a lot, because then it just keeps me for sad for an entire day, and that I could have easily used for doing something productive. So that's how I am dealing with. But yeah, great insight, Yumzhana. I think action, all of this anxiety should be translated into action. I think that's what we are also trying to do at Sustainability Sisters. We are trying to make more people know about this great transition which is coming up, so that they also bring more sustainability into lifestyles, identify where industries can use their potential and all of that. I think the entire podcast, you have given us some golden nuggets, Yumzhana. If you didn't notice, we had so much to take away from this conversation. Thank you very much. So I think we are close to the ending. And do you have something to say about the Sustainability Sisters?
Well, thank you so much for having me. And I enjoyed all the questions, and it was really nice even to catch up with you, because you're a brilliant specialist, and we were all sad that when you left the company. So I hope that your podcast will have a lot of success and a lot of exposure, and that it would actually help people to understand how they can start a career in sustainability.
Yeah, and of course make an impact. Yes,
exactly.
Thank you, Yumzhana. Thank you for coming here. And please, can you ask our viewers to share, and subscribe? So this is a new thing that we are doing, and we have learned to say
okay.
subscribe.
Of course. Influencing, right?
Sort of.
Awesome.
Thank you.
So, Shari, do you want to add anything?
I'm good. I had a great time conversing with Yumzhana, looking at her perspective and the massive experience that she has gathered over the years. Your story is inspiring, Yumzhana, and I believe our audience is going to find this very useful. Thank you so much.
Keep doing the good work, Yumzhana. You're making a great change. You're driving the great change, and all the best. And
thank you so much.
Thank
you, and have a happy Diwali.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Diwali great. Bye-bye.
All right.